I think we'll start a little bit early. I don't think there will be too many more people coming. As you can see, you're here to listen to how to make the property work for you. So just in case anybody got misled, that's what we're going to talk about this afternoon. My name is Richard Wade, and I'm the chairperson of the property committee of the diocese, which reports to the financial committee. And Jean Dunn is going to be presenting half of the program today on solar systems for churches, but solar systems in general. And then I will pick up after that and go through some of the aspects of managing your property and also the ways in which to use it effectively and in the right way. So that's the overall part of the. Let's see, you just push yeah. So we'll go down in two sections basically. The energy and renewable energy will be, Jean will be presenting. Facility usage, deferred maintenance, safety, and a pilot program that we're initiating in the church, which I'll go through, will be part of that. And then I'll just review what the property committee does and how it can help you. The whole purpose of the property committee is to help member churches to deal with property issues, and be they rebuilding, maintenance, leasing, and all the rest of it. And so I'll go through how we function at the end of the presentation. So I'll turn it over to Jean first of all, and he'll give you an overview of solar systems and how they can be used. Yeah. There's a sign-up sheet if anybody should pass it around.
So, thank you very much. I'm Jean Dunn. I'm a parishioner at St. Andrew's in Encinitas. I run a business called Structured Finance Associates. Structured Finance is involved in the PACE program, Property Assessed Clean Energy. Now, before you start throwing things at me, because people call you probably 3 times a day about the PACE program on your phone, I'm involved solely with commercial buildings, so I don't have anything to do with those phone calls. So
Up at our office.
please give me a break here.
Is that your cousin?
No relation whatsoever. So, and what we do is we manage a fund, and that fund invests in financing on commercial properties, primarily to do energy efficiency, but we also do solar, and we also do fuel cells, and we also do cogeneration. And most of our projects are, our average transaction size is about $3 million in round numbers. So that's what I do during the day, and then I also teach at UCSD in the finance area, and so I'm a busy guy. So let me talk about something that everybody already knows. The Jacksonville Energy Association down in Jacksonville, Florida, monitors all electrical rates nationwide. And unfortunately, we live in the most expensive electrical rates utility area in the United States. In fact, our rates here in San Diego are almost 30% higher than Southern California Edison, which is significantly higher than the rest, except compared to Pacific Gas and Electric. So California has by far the highest electrical rates, and San Diego, of course, is the best or the worst, depending on your viewpoint. Okay? And unfortunately, in 2016, San Diego Gas and Electric is now going to increase the rates 7.5% more. So we're all stuck in this, we love to live here, I grew up here, but we're stuck with these high rates, okay? It is moving to what they call a time of use program. So you pay more when you use the electricity at the prime time, if you will, which is roughly from noon to 6 or 7 at night, depending on the time of year. But they're collapsing the number of tiers into a fewer number of tiers, so each person is going to, basically your rates are going to go higher.
Shocking.
And so, and that's an expense item on our budgets that we struggle with. You know, it's constantly going up, and unfortunately, the revenues usually don't go up quite as fast. And now we look at the solar business here in San Diego and in California. There's this, you know, from my vantage point, there's over 2,200 solar companies in California. They've installed 4.3 megawatts of power, or excuse me, just in 2014, over 11.5 megawatts of power. The value increase in the solar installed, or the number of the amount of installation has gone up over 60%. But what's interesting is that the price of solar has dropped precipitously. So solar panels, when I first started in this business, an installation, you calculated on a price per watt, and those prices were in the $6 and $7 range. Now for a commercial project, you're in the $1.75 range. So it's just fallen precipitously, and because of that, even though they granted an extension to the 30% investment tax credit, meaning that you get a 30% refund on your taxes for installing solar, the solar still more than pencils and produces positive cash flow for the installer, even without the tax credit. Okay, so now we've crossed the line, if you will, because the rates have gone up so much and the cost of solar has fallen precipitously, that it makes sense to put solar on buildings, and commercial people are doing this now. It's not just these guys calling you on residential properties. Okay? Because we have now this huge ramp up in both the residential world and in the commercial world of solar, and in the commercial world especially, most of our business is energy efficiency. What you're having is the demand for power is going down, and the number of users who are taking out of the grid is going down, and so San Diego Gas and Electric has to spread their costs over a smaller and smaller base, which means we're in sort of a spiral where the rates are going to continue to go up and up and up. The California Public Utilities Commission budgets that the rates will increase annually by 6.5%. So 6.5% every year. Okay, so how do we protect ourselves? How do we protect, more importantly, our budgets and increase the cash flow available to do the things that we want to do in our various parishes? So I'm going to talk about a few of those things that are available for everybody's parish in the room, and then we can go from there. Okay? So the first thing we need to do is lower our usage. Okay? And we do that in the commercial world by installing energy efficiency. Okay, and I'll go over in a few minutes the various energy efficiency items that we can do. But in order to find it, we need what is called an energy review or an energy audit. Okay, so the traditional energy audit is provided by an energy efficiency engineering firm. and there's 2 levels. One is called an ASHRAE, ASHRAE, level 1, and then a level 2. Now, ASHRAE, I'm going to mess this up, is American Society something electrical engineers. Okay. And they have put out a standard as to these various reports. A quick and dirty review is available to churches for free. An ASHRAE level 1 costs about $3,000. A level 2 costs somewhere between $7,000 and $10,000. So it's expensive, a level 2. A level 2 is highly detailed, and you probably would never even need that. You might consider it a level 1, but you can definitely get an energy review for free. So St. Timothy's is considering a solar project on theirs. They hadn't performed any sort of energy audit. We got a firm to come in and prepare a free energy review. It's not a full ASHRAE level 1, but it's an energy review. And they should get their report. They're supposed to get it last week. They should get it next week. Okay. Once we figure out what we can do to lower our usage, then we need to obviously fix it. And then the big question is, if your church is like my church, no offense, Bob, no one has any money. Okay? So we have to figure out a way to provide the financing for that. And then, once we reduce our usage, then we can properly size the solar if we decide to go forth and use it. It may not necessarily, each is an independent decision by your parish. Okay? So, let's talk about some of the energy efficiency. Well, first thing I can see right here is the lighting. If you move to LED lighting, your payback on your cost is 2 years or less. The same with the controls. So, for example, what I mean is automatic controls. When people walk into the room, here I'm in the way of your picture, the lights will automatically go on. When they leave the room, the lights will go off. Those sorts of controls, especially on HVAC, your heating and air conditioning. St. Tim's, unbeknownst to them, had their air conditioning going a couple weeks ago when it was 60 degrees outside. I mean, they just didn't, people aren't monitoring that and aren't looking at that all the time in your parish, and you can imagine that that happens to you. And that's just running your bill up. So, the controls. Modern air conditioning units can give you a payback between 5 and 7 years. At St. Andrews, we installed new pumps and refrigeration. We have a couple of huge refrigeration units, so we did that. A roof, not so great, but an energy efficient roof is a payback roughly about 10 years. And then, obviously, we're all interested in water conservation and various types of water conservation. So what we need to do is first bring down our bill, and so that's what we do with energy efficiency. I like to think about it in terms of the game my kids used to play, the Tetris, where the blocks piled on top of each other. All of a sudden you have quite a stack. What we want to do is reduce that stack of blocks, and that's what energy efficiency does. So that's the first thing we should do. Then the next thing is solar, photovoltaic solar, PV solar. Because there are over 2,000 different installers of varying quality and sophistication, the prices go all over the place. And there's tremendous delta between an expensive person and a cheaper person. So it really pays to shop around, okay, and look at all the different alternatives. But you want to make sure that the solar is sized to your new electrical output, not based on your old electrical output. So the reason why we do the energy efficiency first is to lower our electrical output, or usage, excuse me, and then size the solar properly to our most efficient use of our facility. Okay? And the payback on solar is roughly 7 to 10 years. It really depends on your location and so forth. So for example, if you're living in, what is it St. Margaret's? It's in the desert. Yeah, I mean, obviously they have some huge bills. If you're living at St. Peter's in Del Mar, where you have a lot of cloud cover, you may not get quite the payback, okay? So that's why I say that each parish really depends on your location and your overall electrical bill. So so now that sounds great. We're going to reduce our line item, and then by putting the solar in, we're going to put an electrical generating plant on top of our roof. And because the price of the solar is going to be fixed, we've locked in our electrical cost for the next 20 years. That sounds great. And you know, we fixed our utility cost, if you will, at a level that should be below what you're paying now. So every transaction that we do always has a savings that exceeds the cost, including the financing. And no parish would go forward unless you've done a financial analysis and seen that the savings, not only from the energy efficiency, but also from the solar, if you decide to add that, exceed the cost of the financing. Otherwise, it really doesn't make any sense. Okay, so now we have all these new toys, if you will. How do you pay for it? So there's 3 different types of financing vehicles associated with energy efficiency and renewable energy. The first one is a plain old lease, like you're leasing your car, okay? So the terms vary, but they're roughly 7 to 10 years. 10 years is on the outside, okay? The lessor takes all the tax credits and takes the risk, depending on how the lease is written, takes the risk associated with the equipment. The second approach is called a power purchase agreement or an energy services agreement. And what you do is, with a power purchase agreement, a company purchases the equipment, the solar system, and then sells you the power, okay, at a price that's going to be less than what you're paying now. Okay, so that's a power purchase agreement. And then finally, the last type is called PACE, Property Assessed Clean Energy. It was a law passed in 2008 and allows a municipality, in this case San Diego County, to put a property tax on your church, and you repay and the proceeds from the taxes are used to purchase the energy efficiency and the renewable energy. Now, a church can opt into a property tax. In other words, you would get a bill just like you do at home every April and December, and the PACE financing would be paid over 20 years at a fixed rate. Okay. Now, if you opt into the property tax, by law, they cannot then opt you into every other property tax. In other words, you only pay for the PACE. You don't pay for any general property tax that we all have to pay for on our homes. Okay.
Gene?
Yeah.
On the PACE program, is there an implied interest rate or?
Yeah, so I'll tell you what the rates are in 2 seconds.
Okay.
Okay? So the good news is everything is 100% financing. So your parish is not out of pocket a nickel. That covers all the costs. The energy is the ASHRAE level 1 if you decide to do that. If you, all the soft costs associated with engineering, etc. All those costs are covered, okay? So you're not out of pocket a nickel. All of them are fixed for the term. So now we can check out and see exactly how much each one costs. And look at the savings versus the cost of the financing. And if we're making positive cash flow, in other words, our savings exceed our costs, then we're ahead of the game. The terms. The lease is roughly, as I mentioned, 7 to 10 years. A power purchase agreement is up to 20 years. And the tax and utility incentives all go to the provider, the financial provider of the power purchase agreement or the lease. So if you decide to do solar, all the tax credits go to the provider of the equipment. Okay. If you're using PACE, we have to sell off the tax credits so the church can take advantage of that, and that would be a diocesan-wide program to sell them off.
When you say a diocesan-wide program, that means the diocese rather than the individual parish is going to get the financial
yeah, and let
benefit.
me tell you why.
Because they're the diocese.
No. No. The reason why is normally the size of a solar system for a church is $150,000, $200,000, depending on the church and the, et cetera. That amount is not economically feasible to actually sell off the tax credits. The usual buyers are banks and larger banks, and they just don't want to do a transaction that has a tax credit of 30% times $200,000, $60,000. So we have to bundle them together. That's all.
And does any of that benefit flow back to the individual parish?
Absolutely, it all does. To the proportional amount. So if you do 200,000 and somebody else does 300,000, they get more because they did a larger system. That's all. Okay. All right. Let me talk about, because Bob asked about interest rates. Okay. PACE financing is roughly 4.25% to, call it 5%. It's really 4.25% for 20 years. A lease is somewhere between 7 and 8, closer to 8% for 10 years. A power purchase agreement, the implied rate in a power purchase agreement because they're selling you power, is roughly 10 to 12%. So that gives you an idea. Okay, so the PACE is the cheapest by far, but it's a little more cumbersome than a power purchase agreement or a lease. Okay? All right, let's talk about the credit considerations, because that's this all sounds great, but can you get the financing? Okay? A lease and a power purchase agreement, look at the financial statement of the parish, okay? And they're making a credit decision based on the credit of the individual parish, okay? So, depending on which parish you are, they'd have to take a look at it and see whether you qualified or not, okay? But it's very credit sensitive, as you can imagine, okay? Because the PACE is a property tax assessment, it looks at the value of the church property. Okay, so if most church properties have significant value, some have mortgages, some don't, and that's always a consideration. But that's how the PACE people look at it. That's how we look at a commercial property, for example. Okay, so the PACE is usually normally easier to qualify and can give you a longer term. But I'm not here to tout one or the other. There are benefits and pluses and minuses for each one. Okay, any questions about that? No? Okay. So, when we read the Great Litany, we're supposed to take care of the earth. It's our home. And on top of that, I personally think that if we decided to do a diocesan-wide program and improve our energy efficiency and renewable energy, that would not only be a great thing in terms of our budgeting and our cash flow, But just as importantly, it could be a very strong marketing take, and would help draw people to our church, because, you know, the vast majority of people believe that there's global warming, and here we're a church that's stepping up and doing something about it. Okay. Not that we're in competition with the Roman Catholics, but they just announced that in the Diocese of San Diego that they were gonna look to roll out solar on all their buildings, so we gotta catch up and beat those guys. Okay, so, the most important thing, though, is to protect our parishes from future rate increases, because they're coming. And that's gonna knock back, you know, that's something that's gonna hurt us in the long term. So if we can lock in our electrical rate, it's gonna help us from a budgeting, it's gonna help us from a cash flow standpoint. Yes, sir?
What happens at the end of the term of the lease or the end of the term of the PACE?
Okay, at the end of the term of the PACE, the parish owns all the equipment, free and clear.
And so.
Okay, it's like a loan on your car. When you pay off your car loan, you own it.
Okay, and
On a
then, so
lease-
then obviously the parish can continue to use it as long as it's operating, and the parish is then responsible for repairs or replacement.
Correct. Now, normally, a guarantee for a solar system is 20 years, but the useful life is roughly 25 to 30. So you would get a little bit extra usage from it. Okay. A power purchase agreement at the end of the 20 years, they usually have some sort of buyout, just like a lease, or they would take the property off the top of your roof. Now, most, you know, I've never seen that happen. At the end of 20 years, the equipment is not worth that much. So that whole thing needs to be tested, if you will, in the commercial market. But you know, legally, that's what they can do. Yes, sir?
So under the PPA, you would still have to pay some minimal amount per month.
Right. So
But
they
under
would
PACE,
lock in
it's
a
zero.
rate. Pardon?
But under PACE, it's zero?
It's zero. You would just pay the PACE
Property
payment.
tax assessment.
The property tax, oh, okay, all right.
You don't get it for free.
All right, so it'd be you said 4% on PACE and then 12 at the PPA?
Well, implied interest rate, so
It's
it's a
implied.
4% lower.
4%
It's
interest
the cost
rate.
of the money.
The cost of the equipment plus 4%,
Yeah, one of them
is
went
gonna
up to
amortize
12.
over 20 years at a 4% interest rate applied.
Perfect. Yes, sir?
It's my understanding that the utilities are arguing that you never can leave the grid. So they are after the PUC be able to levy a fee as a ready to serve you if you need it. Do you know anything about what that
Yeah,
might?
San Diego Gas and Electric just had a settlement with the PUC, and part of that was the argument over net metering. In other words, when you're attached to the grid, so your extra power is going back into the grid. The settlement was there is going to be a minimum payment for being attached to the grid. Most people surpass the amount of electricity, so they don't see it. Second of all, the net metering says that when you sell the electricity back, you're selling it at the retail price and not the wholesale price. So that's a plus for consumers. So that was the trade-off. Now, I can't remember the exact amount of the charge, but it's relatively nominal. I mean, it's 25 bucks or something like that. Right now. Now, conceptually, it could go substantially higher. Yes?
Yeah, maintenance issues, if you have a storm or act of God, and you have trouble, and so your system goes down, if you are off the grid, then you are responsible for
Well,
repairs?
number one, let's talk about the grid, and then we'll talk about the repairs. Okay? You always are attached to the grid. Okay? So if the solar produces excess power, for example, it's going at 12 o'clock noon on a weekday, and you're not occupying the parish hall or whatever, you're not using very much power. At that point in time, the power goes back into the grid, and you're being paid under the net metering thing. Okay,
Cash?
so
You're paid cash?
it's an offset to your bill.
Oh.
Okay, if there's extra, you are entitled to some cash reimbursement, but the goal, you know, the San Diego Gas and Electric is not looking for you to make money on the solar. Okay? So it's not an extra revenue generator for the parish.
But you could zero out the electric bill.
You definitely can
If I
zero
put
out.
twice the capacity of what I needed up there, I can zero that out, but I can't make money per month?
Correct.
Okay.
But you can
And
make your
then let me
neighbors
talk
happy.
about the maintenance issue. In a PACE program, you would also sign a 20-year maintenance program with the solar provider, and they would be responsible for all the maintenance. Solar falls under most commercial insurance programs that you would insure your parish hall and your facilities, etc. And so normally it doesn't cost any additional money on your insurance. So if it blew off, or you had a hailstorm and it cracked all the panels, all that would be covered under your
But-
normal insurance.
With respect to the providers in the relatively young industry, which among the 2,000 providers includes some people who are not the most reputable or the most stable. You're not going to get the same type of service that you would get from SDNG or SCE about in a major catastrophic event of having the same response, I would think.
Well, you have to remember, number one, that you're always attached to the grid. So you're not going to lose power.
Okay?
Okay? The second thing is,
Remember
you're
that.
right, none of the solar companies are as big as SDG&E. But, there are definitely, not everybody's calling you at 5 o'clock in the evening or 6 o'clock. I mean, there are a lot of very reputable firms.
I wasn't saying there weren't, but
Yeah.
I mean, it's a crowded field with a lot of new entrants.
You have to remember that the barrier to entry, let's say you decided you wanted to go into the solar business, all you really need is a pickup truck, access to a distributor, and you have to have, you have to be a licensed electrician.
Right.
So basically, anybody can do it. The installation, the technology here is not, any
Not
sort of
tricky.
brain surgery here. So that's why you see so many people. Now, eventually that number will be
It will
whittled
shake out.
down and there'll be a shakeout, but we're in the early days of this. Yes, ma'am?
Are there grants for houses of worship or anything like that
I'm not aware of any like that, but I'm sure, that's because I haven't done any research, to be honest with you.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am?
There had been grants a few years ago for nonprofits, I'm not sure now. I mean, my family has had a PV system for 7 or 8 years, and we got a congratulations welcome, to our newest solar generating plant from SDG&E. We have had, if you do your research, we have the Center for Sustainable Energy in San Diego, and they provide a wealth of knowledge. And if you do your research and you hire a reputable installer and you select components, preferably not manufactured in China, but good components, you should have no problems. And even in areas with very extreme weather, they hold up very well. So they do lose some efficiency over the lifetime, supposedly, where they're not really generating quite as much energy but we oversized our system and then got a plug-in hybrid vehicle and did not see an increase in our bill. So even with the grid fees, which are annoying, but hey.
Maintenance is just washing the panels off.
That's right.
Exactly. And if
It's
it
not,
rains-
it's not like somebody's going in and turning a wrench or doing anything. Okay, thank you very much.
Just as a matter of, to allay some of the concerns, I've also had a solar system in my house for about, I think it's 5 years now. And talking about losing power, we lose power because the grid goes down. It's happened 3 times now in the last storms we just had. The power went down. And if we had, I don't have a battery system, but if we had a battery system hooked up to to the solar, I could have switched over to the battery system and had power. So there's some advantage to having solar even when the grid goes down. And the largest bill I've had to pay in that time has been $25. So there's some advantage to it. Well, thank you, Gene. I'm going to continue and go through some of other aspects of looking after facilities and maintenance and so forth. Is that the next thing? Could we go back just to the we just finished this, and I'm going to cover these topics here, and then just wrap up quickly with what the property committee of the diocese does, and what it's there for as a help to the member churches. Okay, let's go. As everything, we, as members of churches, etc., one of our commitments is good shepherding our equipment as much as our spiritual values. And unfortunately, that's one of the topics that sometimes gets short-shrifted. People have this feeling that buildings will last forever, they don't need a lot of maintenance. Well, that's not true. And that prevention is definitely better than cure. And in our parish, we have, our diocese, we have quite a few older buildings, older in the sense of California, but they still have their problems. So I'm going to talk a little bit about that. First of all, we have a responsibility to the diocese for reviewing contracts, contracts of any kind for use of facilities, etc. Now this applies principally to the mission-supported churches and missions. For the independent parishes, they can access expertise from our legal department and from the property department, but it's proved to be effective in the past when they have solicited that equipment. But nevertheless, we can review those things and help each of the member churches. As part of our service, we have prepared, and you can come and pick up a handbook called the Property Usage Guidelines. This is a document that basically gives you templates for various use functions, both short and long term, on how to, when you lease properties or so forth, or use them, like with short-term leases like AA, or long-term leases when you share your facility with another church or something. So this document is current, it's just been updated, and it has in it some things you should look for in use of your property or leasing it. And at the back it's got templates, and there's one from our diocese here on how to cover yourself legally when you use a shared facility. So that's one of the things we do. In deferred maintenance and capital reserve planning, we basically help member churches who seek our help to do an assessment, much like the energy auditing or energy assessment. We will do a safety assessment and a facilities needs assessment, and which would be looking at the electrical system, the water system, foundations, roof, you name it, everything all the things that in the structural, and we can help out. Members of our committee have experience in various aspects of real estate, from construction, planning, leasing, and architectural aspects and landscaping. So that all those technologies, if you will, we have people who have experience in that. One of the things that we recommend is to perform a site investigation before you do anything, even build a deck or whatever. And I can cite many cases that we've been through even in the last year where that has proved to be a very significant cost benefit. Then prioritize those needs into short-term, medium-term, and long-term. And that's usually broken down into a safety issue in the short term, and safety plus potential hazards in the midterm, and long term would be more major capital expenditures such as replacing a roof or whatever. Then go through the exercise of establishing a timeline for expenses for the various things when they should be implemented, and come up with a plan within these 3 time zones. That's the objective of this approach. Once you do that and you come up with these cost assessments on the timeline, you can categorize them as things that need fixing and are usually just maintenance issues, which comes out of your regular budget. You have to plan for it on your real budget, and then a capital expense, which will then be funded through a capital expenditure program, either if you go to a fundraising approach, or you have monies already allocated to capital. And so they get split up that way, and we'll assist you in doing that. We've also contracted with a company that has performed several of these things, what they call property needs assessment, P&As, for us, and they've done a remarkably good job. And what they do for you is to do the assessment program. They come up with a cost time basis for you in these categories that I just mentioned, and even come up with a cost estimate so you can do your planning. And they have been very, very cooperative working with the diocese. We've had about 10 of these done already throughout for various churches. They cost about $2,000. They give us a good rate for them. They cost between $2,000 and $2,500 depending on the size of the church to do that. But it's valuable information. I know you won't be able to read this too well, but I just wanted to put it up as the sort of thing you get from this. This is safety issues, and then it goes into intermediate, and there's another one for long term. They make an assessment of various things that involved. They come up with a cost estimate, and they put it into a long-term time, because the third thing would be the major issues. So if you go to the next one, which you won't see at all, but we have hard copies of these just so you get a feeling. This is for one of our churches. It goes out to year, this one goes out to, I think, year 15. And it's got a spreadsheet here with cost and planning, and these are the various short-term and long-term, intermediate term. And it's a very helpful document, because as you go forward, because vestries change every year or every 2 years, whatever the case may be, you tend to lose this information with the passage of time. If you have this done, it's a document that you can hold and keep your focus on what is the need for the church. So we strongly advise the member churches to think about doing this if they haven't already done it. Some of you have done it, but if you haven't done it, to do this kind of a study. We are presently, just flip to the next one. We are presently working with a couple of churches on a pilot program, which I'll show you in a minute, which they've all had these P&As done for them, and we are now going into the implementation stage of fixing what needs to be fixed. As an added function to the committee's work for the diocese, we also do safety assessments, and I'm sure most of you have at one stage or other had this done. Tom Wilson, who's a member of the committee, goes around to each church in the diocese and does a very initial but worthwhile safety survey. And he tries to cover one church a month or two churches a month, but usually he can't cover all the churches, so sort of the cycle is over a 2-year period primarily. And he produces a little report that he sends back to the church and says, you know, you better watch out for this. That is a very useful document, because that document, we take that when if you contract with this company or get a P&A done, that forms the basis of where they start from, and they usually can go in there with this already done, but they use it as a guide. So Tom is always available, and we have all the safety assessments that he's done available to us for various churches. So if you ever lose them, you can always get a copy from us. That's one of our other functions. Finally, I just wanted to talk about the pilot program, which really is geared to most the missions at the moment, the mission churches, because usually they are smaller churches. They have less money to spend on fixing their facilities, and some of them have very relatively old facilities. So the pilot program that we have started, and the committee is involved in, is to get P&As done for these 7 churches that we starting with, and to help them get this information, and then help them in structuring their financial program to address the issues. And can you put it to the next one? Here's a list of the churches that will be involved in this pilot program. Most of them have had P&As done already, except St. Albans it hasn't yet. They hope to get it done this year. But these churches have P&As, and I'll show you. They're very comprehensive documents. Here's one. You can see how thick it is, and it has pictures in it. I can send it around if you want. You can look at it. This one happens to be for. Let's see. I can't read. I don't have my glasses. Oh, this is for All Saints Church in Brawley. They had one done. So just pass it around. You can see how thorough these documents are, and they're well worthwhile having as part of your building
How are these
program.
churches chosen? How are these missions chosen?
They are missions.
How are they chosen?
They were all missions, and then we just, the members of the committee sat down and see where the needs were most in terms of facility. That's really what it was. Next slide, please. So the property committee is, it tells you a little bit of the functions that we do. We are a member of the finance committee. We report a subcommittee of the finance committee, and that's worthwhile because properties need money, and money governs properties. We have oversight over the various things you see here, property that the diocese has, and we recommend actions of purchase, sell, lease, otherwise we get involved in that at the request of the finance committee. Usually, if there is such an occasion comes up and there's some facility issue, they come to us to say, oh, is this realistic or not, or something to that effect. We are responsible for safety inspection that I just mentioned. We also have a member assigned to each area. We divide it into areas, and each area has a member of the committee that is responsible for it. It's like one of the missionaries that we have, and they respond to that particular area when it comes to facilities. We review property-related loans, grants, and contracts as required, and then propose corrective actions as we are doing, as I said, with these pilot from there. And we prepare information as we see things, the property usage guidelines, as I've said. There's a copy of it, copies of it here if you are interested. Come and get one afterwards and you can take it with you. So that really is what our function is and what we do. These are the members, current members. Tom, Bob is not on here because he took some time out for a while, but he will be back with us. And Jean is going to interface, but potentially with us, as if the solar systems requirements come in. So that's a little overview of what we do and what we are here to help the diocese. There's no charge for the people's time. We all volunteers, and
lunches. Lunches.
Yeah, well, yeah, some of us do want travel afar in the diocese because it stretches all over the place. But we are available and amenable to working with you on any projects that deal with your property and that includes landscaping and building. Right now, just as an example, St. Philip's is putting in a new parking lot, for example, and one of our members wrote the request for proposal for that. They had gone ahead on their own and got a cost quote that required them to put a standard 4-inch base fill over an asphalt driveway. Turns out we recommended that they do a soil test, and just as well, because the whole thing would have crumbled in about 6 months because of the land was an old fill area and it wasn't supportive enough. So they're going to a 6-inch base, and that saved doing that once and for all and compacting will save them a lot of money. Has saved them a lot of money. And so that's one instance. I can enumerate many other things that we've been involved in that has saved the particular church some significant change. Any questions?
Just a comment. I happen to be from
Yeah,
St. Philip's,
yes.
and I work with Paul, and
Yeah.
they've been a tremendous help for our church. I'm not into pavement. None of us in our church are into that. And he's met with us. He's met with some of the possible contractors, and we just met out. So yesterday, Friday, we met again to review the proposals, and we're going to make some adjustments. But I can't say enough. A lot of those people on that list have helped us a lot down in South Phillips. Really appreciate the support.
Thank you. Any other questions?
One thing I want to mention, if you want to get a copy of the presentations, if you could come here and write your email down, then I'd be happy to send it to you.
Yeah, that list went down, there's a sign-up.
Oh, it's on the sign-up sheet?
It's on the sign-up sheet, so we can get it from there.
2 questions.
Yes.
One, the guidebook that you have there, is it available in electronic form so that it can be used as a template without retyping stuff?
Yeah, PDF format, yeah.
Okay. Is it available in a Word format?
No, then it gets.
I'd have to do the conversion, basically.
Yeah.
Okay. And then, I'm from a mission, or currently a mission. If we do any leasing of our facilities for any sort of program, does that have to go through you to get approved at the diocesan level?
Yeah, if you're a mission, yes.
Okay, so if a group came to us and said, we want to rent out your hall for
Well,
Friday afternoon to do whatever,
Yeah, I think.
we need to run it through you and say,
Well, you probably have a document that covers that transaction, a written document that you sign.
we would, yeah.
Yeah, well, if you send it to us for review, that's all that is
Okay.
required.
Yeah, we haven't done that yet, we're hoping to.
Yeah, but this document has some boilerplate in it that you could probably use and save yourself some time.
I'm always in favor of saving myself time.
That's right. Any other questions? Well, thank you all for attending.
Definitely keep that out for all. They're probably, they're probably